In just a moment, we'll be meeting our guest for this afternoon, Dr. Coceka Mfundisi. She is a renowned neurosurgeon who broke barriers by becoming only the third black woman to qualify as a neurosurgeon in South Africa. As we celebrate Women's Month this month, she joins us now to share her story. Doctor, very good to have you with us on the Daytime Update today. Welcome and happy Women's Month to you.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you very much for having me, and happy Women's Month to you too and your viewers.
Perhaps let's start with what a neurosurgeon does.
Technically, I'm a brain surgeon, but my work is not just purely confined to the brain. I treat brain and spine conditions that need surgical intervention. So, for example, people who have got a head injury, those people are usually under my treatment. People who have had spine trauma after a motor vehicle accident are usually under my treatment. I also treat other non-trauma conditions such as brain and spinal cord tumors, aging or arthritis of the spine. That's the kind of work I do. I also provide expert opinion when there's a need in cases where there is compensation sought for the person who has been injured. So my work is, fairly broad, from being a clinician also to doing quite a little bit of administrative work in the field.
Now, you are only the third black woman to qualify as a neurosurgeon in South Africa, but going out of the racial classification, how many neurosurgeons, women neurosurgeons, do we have in the country? Are we as women represented in that particular career as far as gender is concerned?
Look, traditionally neurosurgery in the whole world, in fact, has been mostly a male discipline. And there's been a number of barriers that we put up to ensure that it remains that way. So generally, women will not be drawn into neurosurgery because of these barriers that I'm talking about. And so in South Africa, in context, we have about probably close to 200 neurosurgeons in South Africa currently. And out of that, probably less than 10% of them are women. So we are very few and far in between. The numbers have been growing significantly over the last few years. We've seen some years where we have 2, 3 women qualifying to become neurosurgeons in the past few years. But we still have a long way to go. We still need to make the discipline accessible and easy for women to actually enter and also stay once they have entered the program.
And at what point did you decide that I will become a neurosurgeon? What led you to this particular profession?
It was just fascination with the, brain and just the whole neurological system. So just in my undergrad, I got exposed to neurology, which is another discipline which deals with brains, and also psychiatry as well, which deals more with the mind and also partially the brain as well. So I had a choice out of the 3, to pick from, and I have. Some people will say I've got a temperament of a surgeon. So then I decided to go with neurosurgery. But most importantly, I was also just very impressed by the kind of work that neurosurgeons do and the kind of treatment options that they offer to patients. So I found it completely fascinating. And I always, say to people, look, the brain has not been fully discovered and there's still a lot more being learned. So it continues to be challenging and almost like every other, a year you're learning something new and there's a new skill to attain. So that is what drew me to it, the constant challenge. And also, of course, just the fact that people are saying it's very difficult and I was like, oh, well, then that's what I want to do. Let me try the difficult thing and see how it goes.
And how do we actually get younger women to have, I guess, the temperament of a neurosurgeon and for them to say, I want to do the impossible. I want to be one of those women who are entering professions that are not really dominated by the gender?
We have the temperament naturally as women to be actually excellent neurosurgeons. But there are many barriers, mostly man-made, that are there that keep us out of it. You'll get stories like, if you want to have a family, you cannot do neurosurgery because of how demanding it is. During the training programs, some of the demands and expectations from a trainee, they become, they border on the unreasonable at times. And these, for me, are the things that then will keep one away from the specialty. sometimes you would have a woman, who then falls pregnant during the program. And then in some institutions, they want to extend the period of training to more than the required period, which can be 4 or 5 years, depending on the institution. Yet there is no evidence that shows that taking 4 months off maternity leave in the 4-year training program will actually make you an inferior surgeon compared to ones who have not taken time off. So there are some number of issues, the same issues that I'm sure you will experience in the media, experience as women anyway, really. Things that are just meant to keep you out of it, comments that are usually very hostile about our personalities, that the temperament that is always good and hard on a man, when they look at the same temperament in a woman, there's always negative commentary that goes with it. So there's a number of things, mostly man-made, and really can be changed by us. That can be changed to actually make sure that more and more women enter this kind of specialty.
She is Dr. Coceka Mfundisi, neurosurgeon. We'll continue talking to her when we return in just a moment as we profile women who are doing perhaps the extraordinary, who are breaking barriers and charting a way for the next generation of women. We'll be right back. Dr. Coceka Mfundisi is a renowned neurosurgeon who broke barriers by becoming only the 3rd black woman to qualify as a neurosurgeon in South Africa. As we celebrate Women's Month, she joins us now as we continue our conversation. Dr. Mfundisi, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you were born, where do you come from?
I'm originally from the Eastern Cape, in the area called town called Emigrating. So that's basically where I was born and raised. I did most of my schooling in Mthatha, and then went on to university in Cape Town, and then subsequently University of Pretoria for my master's and also for my fellowship to be admitted as a neurosurgeon. So that's basically, in a very briefly, my journey basically from where I was born to where I actually am right now.
And what have been some of the challenges that you have encountered along the way?
The same challenges that the women in any profession really a challenge. You have not only to contend with being a woman in the specialty, but you also have to contend with being a black woman in the specialty. So you don't only face discrimination based on your gender, but also on your race as well. So those are the kind of things that we experience, and I think that is not any different for any other professional woman who is thriving and striving to be the best that they can be in their field in this country. So that is effectively nothing very different from most women.
And who are the people who have inspired you along the way? People who have opened doors for you, people that you have counted as mentors?
Let's look at a number of people, right from my upbringing, my grandmother, my aunts, my mother, people who were just very encouraging of me seeking, to go to greater heights on anything and really seeking to excel in anything that I do. And then also in university, a number of people literally almost holding your hand. I remember once particularly Dr. Coceka Mfundisi. His current name is a neurosurgeon. I think he's based in Zambia currently. He was a registrar at UCT at the time, which is a trainee neurosurgeon at the time when I was an undergrad. And, once invited me to theater with them and showed me what neurosurgeons do, and I got very excited about that. And just a number of women who have opened the way, and also other black people, Professor Mayoses of this world, who actually spearheaded my entry into the University of Pretoria. Professor Mfundisi, who was my head of department at that time, very supportive head of department, who in my department, and of course in our specialty, we tend to be discriminated against for falling pregnant, for example, while you're training. And my head of department was different in that they actually were looking forward and excited with the prospect of me falling pregnant. In fact, he couldn't wait for me to have a child, despite the fact that I was training. So those things that, they made things easier, and those are the people who really, were almost the torchbearers for us in the field, and were very encouraging and, believing in our abilities as well.
Knowing yourself before you became a mother, how would you say motherhood has changed you?
Sure, I've calmed down. I've seriously had to, patience has been pushed. Look, the discipline on its own requires one to be patient. But then enter motherhood, and you have to contend with a person who's got things made up in their mind and they think they've got it right. So it has actually been exciting and just a very challenging journey, but I've enjoyed every moment of it.
There are young people now who've just graduated, young doctors who still need to do their internships and their services. And you would have seen and heard complaints of young people who haven't yet been placed, whose, stipends have not even been guaranteed. What type of suggestion or advice would you give to them who are feeling despondent right now, even about the career that they've chosen to enter?
Look, one, medicine is a generally a lovely discipline to actually be involved in. We make people feel better. And I don't know if there's anything that, I'm not looking down on any other career, but I don't know if there's anything that actually could be better service to humanity than making a person feel better. And at times when you can't make them feel better, to be the person who listens and holds their hand despite and through their difficult time. So they will ultimately enjoy the craft of medicine once the challenges they've experienced are over. But let me say it, I mean, these challenges are not new for new doctors. Not being paid on time, there's a number of doctors who constantly complain not being paid, at times for months. Not getting a salary while you're working, and you're expected to still show up at work and still function and perform as you would have. The issue of the placement and the significant delay that happened this year, it is completely, I'm completely dumbfounded what planning was involved, when you actually increase the numbers of medical students in medical schools and yet will not have a place for them once they have qualified, but insist on a mandatory training period of 2 years. So there's a lot that needs to be done by the Department of Health to ensure that they actually just, at least live up to their promise and at least live up to the requirements that they require for one to register as a practitioner in this country. But I want to encourage them that, look, this, administrative inefficiencies should not discourage them. It is a lovely discipline, the discipline of medicine, and they must still continue and still forge ahead with their careers and also their ambitions in the career.
I also did notice that there's some young people who started forming groups, and talks of emigrating and talks of perhaps being able to practice medicine outside of South Africa were prevalent, with young people feeling despondent and that they won't have an opportunity here in South Africa. How would you respond to such?
Look, the fortunate thing is that South African training is on par with international training, and it affords one opportunities elsewhere. And I would not want to be sentimental trying to encourage people to stay within a system that does not value them and a system that actually is intentional on abusing them. I would say spread your wings if you must. There is no reason why one should actually feel imprisoned within a system that doesn't actually seem to care or value your expertise. Someone else somewhere in the world will appreciate the expertise. At the end of the day, our service is to humanity, and wherever humanity is found in the world must be served. And so I think that I would not want to be sentimental and say stay on despite abuse, despite not being valued in the system. I really, I would not go down that line with young doctors. I think that they must spread their wings when opportunities present themselves anywhere in the world, and also just get exposure of how things are done elsewhere. It's always also great for the country at the end of the day, because many of them do return to serve the country. You know that in the early 2000s, there was a number of medical practitioners who would go and practice in the UK, but many of them returned and actually are based here, working here as specialists.
Dr. Mfundisi, what would be your message to women this Women's Month?
Let's keep, kicking those doors open, and when you do enter, let's then extend a ladder to the ones who are yet to come in, or extend a hand to the ones who are yet to come in. And let's literally be a sisters keeper as much as we can. But I also wish to encourage you, Tammy, and also the media, that, as women professionals particularly, I wish that at times you can also invite us to talk to what we actually do. I love neurosurgery, and I love just the work of working on people's brains and spines. And many times the profiling that is done on us is mostly based on our person, hardly ever based on our work. And I think that this particular way of profiling us is what is going to hold us back, because you never really get an opportunity to actually speak to your subject matter that you're passionate about and that you know very well, to actually inspire youngsters. So I really wish to call also for a change in the manner in which, as women, we are profiled in the media.
Well, thank you very much. Certainly very valid points there, the intricacies of neurosurgery and what the job actually entails. That's Dr. Coceka Mfundisi. I love it there at the end when she says, as doctors, their calling and their service is for humanity. And wherever humanity is found in the world, theirs is to be there to serve. She is our dynamic woman of the day that we're profiling throughout this month of August.